They called me a madman, or whatever it was that Thanos said. I can't remember. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. Speaking of subscribers, if you are a subscriber of mine, you'll probably know by now that I'm not the biggest fan of this year's quarterback class, to say the least. This isn't something new. I've been saying it since the Browns were sniffing a top 5 pick last season, and people were looking at what quarterbacks were coming out. Now, I'm not going to claim that I'm a draft scouting expert by any means, but I do watch quite a lot of college football, and I trust my eyes as much as I can. And I've just not been impressed with any of the quarterbacks this year as a potential top 5 pick. I mean, shit, I'd be hesitant to draft Cam Ward at number 2 overall, if I'm completely honest, let alone Shedeur Sanders. In classic Browns fan tradition, we've, of course, split the opinions into cliques. So I've firmly been in the, Browns shouldn't draft a quarterback at 2 camp. The simple explanation is what I just said. I just don't think any of these guys are good enough to use the second overall pick on. But I will be doing a more in-depth explanation for why I believe this in a later video as part of my kind of prospect dives. But, as I said, as someone who has been in this camp for the entire off-season, I've taken a fair bit of stick, shall we say, on social media for it, which is odd because I never thought I would be criticised for wanting to draft the best player in the draft. But I suppose it's draft season, so silly season is truly upon us. Now, just because I don't think the Browns should draft a quarterback at 2, that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't think they should draft a quarterback at all. There has been a certain quarterback that I've had my eyes on all off season. At first, talking about him gathered even more stick on social media than just saying the Browns shouldn't draft a quarterback at 2. In some cases, I was literally laughed at for saying that the Browns should be targeting him. But fast forward to today, and this guy seems to be getting more buzz around being linked to the Browns than any other quarterback in the class. Enough suspense. I know anyone that's seen my previous videos on this and knows who I'm talking about is probably getting sick right now of me keep trying to build this up. So I am, of course, talking about Alabama quarterback Jalen Isaiah Milroe. I can already hear the boos in the background, but there's been a lot of buzz surrounding Milroe and the Browns in the last few days, with Schefter himself reporting that Milroe had a very impressive private workout with the Browns. And there's even been some rumours, circling around there that, the Browns are considering trading up into the first to take Jalen Milroe. Don't get me wrong, this could happen, of course. I'm not saying it won't happen. But that doesn't mean that any of these rumours have any actual, genuine credibility behind them. It's just speculation. But the noise is certainly getting louder surrounding Milroe. And I must admit, it has been quite funny seeing the reaction as, someone who has been pushing this agenda for months, whether that's people buying into the idea or the same people that gave me stick now giving those people stick for talking about Milroe positively. Regardless, I welcome the discourse because up until this point, it's not really been something that I've been able to generate much interest with. As I said at the start, Milroe has been the pick at quarterback that makes the most sense for me. That's been pretty much the same, all off season. That's how I felt. Not because I think he's a top 10 pick before anyone comments. Not because I think he's going to be a slam dunk, the next Lamar Jackson. But just because I'd rather bet on a player's tools and upside over a player's floor. And I would especially rather do that in an underwhelming quarterback class like this year's. For me personally, I don't think the gap between Jalen Milroe's ceiling and Shedeur Sanders is big enough to justify drafting one, potentially an entire round earlier. I am going to be doing prospect dives into both Milroe and Sanders soon. So I'll save the more, analysis for that video. But essentially, that's how I feel about both guys. Now, my discussions around Milroe up until this point have been under the assumption that he would be there at pick 33, which is partly why a trade back from 2, could be so beneficial if you can pick up an extra second round pick so you can go quarterback as well as address, another position of need in the top 50. But as I was saying, the prospect of drafting an Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter at 2 and a Jalen Milroe at 33 was always the more appealing option for me than drafting any quarterback at number 2. And, by doing so, then missing out on one of the 2 true blue chip prospects in this draft. However, with, recent buzz around Milroe, not just from a Browns but league-wide perspective instead, it is starting to look like a real possibility that he could be drafted in the first round. He actually accepted an invitation to the NFL draft green room, which would suggest that he's received, some confidence, shall we say, from teams that they'll take him because, we've all seen the videos of the guys that had to sit there and they'd not hear their name called, during the first night of the draft, and it's just brutal stuff. So, now my plan for Milroe is in a little bit of a dilemma because, as I said, this was always under the assumption that he would be available at 33. I would be less keen on trading back up into the first for him. Would I do it? I mean, probably if it didn't cost too much, but I think I'd feel a little bit dirty whilst doing it. I might have to have a shower afterwards. But at the end of the day, if the Browns believe in him enough to do so, then I'm fully on board. And, I will just preference by saying the same applies to Shedeur Sanders as well. I mean, we all know Cam Ward's going number 1, but let's just say the Titans shock us all. It would apply to him as well. If the Browns think that any of these guys will be a top 16 to top 12 quarterback in the NFL, then they should take them at 2. If they think that Jalen Milroe will be, then they should take him at 2. If you believe that he's your guy, you just have to take him, not take the risk. The position is too important not to. It doesn't matter whether myself or anyone else thinks that they shouldn't do that. If that's what they think, then they should do it. But that's where I'm at with Jalen Milroe. As I said, he's been the guy that makes the most sense to me for pretty much this whole process. And no, it's not because Browns offensive coordinator Tommy Rees was Milroe's offensive coordinator at Alabama during the best season of his college career. I mean, don't get me wrong, that of course gives you some food for thought, but that is not what I'm basing this off by any means. As I said, I'll talk about Milroe more in my prospect dive video, but I think he has some upside that, I'd be willing to bet on overreaching for a quarterback at 2. If I can get Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter as well as Jalen Milroe on day 2, I would do it in a heartbeat. And to be honest, I'd probably even prefer drafting Carter or Hunter than trading back into the first for Milroe than I would taking a quarterback at 2. I mean, I just think you have to walk away from the draft with either great trade back compensation or one of either Carter or Hunter. To be honest, I said I'd probably rather trade back into the first for Jalen Milroe than take a quarterback at 2. I would probably rather draft a Will Howard in the 4th round if it meant still getting Carter or Hunter than drafting a quarterback at 2. And speaking of both those guys, as I mentioned in my previous video, Travis Hunter is, starting to overtake Abdul Carter as the bookies' favourite to go number 2 overall to the Browns. So I suppose I'll have to accept defeat in the war of the prospects, as I am borderline convinced at this point that the Browns will draft Travis Hunter at number 2 if they don't trade back. Don't get me wrong, my preference is still Abdul Carter, and that will not change between now and the draft. But as I've said time and time again, I just don't think the Browns can go wrong with either player. So I would still be incredibly excited as a Browns fan if Hunter was the pick at number 2. Quickly to finish, back to the QBs. I do want to just preference that, because the Browns had a private workout with Milroe, that doesn't mean he is the pick. They've had private workouts with pretty much all of the quarterbacks in this year's draft. We've heard some positive stuff about Jackson Dart's private workout as well. They're starting to do their top 30 visits. Jalen Milroe, of course, was one of them. Jackson Dart as well. I think Tyler Shaw is also, which please don't draft Tyler Shaw. But they have to do their due diligence. And, this video was more about the tide shifting in Milroe's favour from a narrative perspective, more so than, obviously, they're going to draft him. As I mentioned earlier, I've been trying to talk about Milroe all off-season, but it never really gained much traction. No one really wanted to talk about it. So now there's a lot more interest. I just wanted to kind of give some context regarding Milroe as my choice at quarterback and why. As I said, I will be doing a full prospect dive into Milroe as well as Sanders. I've got NFL draft expert Jack Brentnell, thankfully coming back onto the channel to help me with these prospect dives, which I should be rolling out as early as next week. As well as, Sanders and Milroe will also be doing some dives on Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and, some other prospects as well, just to cover all of the options for the Browns with the number 2 pick. I want to give you guys some different perspectives on these players rather than just the typical, draft shit you get from ESPN. So keep your eyes peeled for those videos. But as I said, I just wanted to do a quick one today with all the kind of Jalen Milroe noise at the minute. I've been talking about it all off season, but no one really wanted to hear it. So I just kind of wanted to hop on, reiterate that I have been talking about it all off season because, not every single person. It's been pretty lonely on the Jalen Milroe train for most of this off season. So as I said, just wanted to kind of give some context that's where I'm still at, and the fact that I am, of course, welcoming the discourse because, as I said, there wasn't much interest before, but now it seems to be that a lot more fans are more on board with this and are probably more intrigued to hear, other people's perspectives on Milroe. So that's kind of where I'm at with Milroe. He is he is the pick that makes the most sense at quarterback for me. I will dive into, his full kind of player profile, what he actually brings as a player in his prospect dive video. But for now, as I said, just wanted to kind of give you an idea of where I'm at. That will do it for me today. As I said, just wanted to get this video out for anyone who wasn't aware on my views. I'm also going to be doing a Q&A video, my first Q&A, pretty soon. So if there's any Browns related questions or even questions about why this random British guy is a Cleveland sports fan, then either comment them on this video or you can head over to my social media accounts and post them there. The links are in my bio for those as always. If you do enjoy my content, then please do me a favor, drop this video a like, hit the subscribe button. It's free, but it really, really helps out my channel. You can also check the links, as I said, in the description to see where you can follow, interact with me, get in touch with me on social media. As I always say, I'm trying to build a community of Cleveland Browns fans, and even if I only get to talk to one fan a day, I'm happy because I'm talking Browns football with the best fan base in the world. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have a great rest of the week, Keep your eyes peeled for all of the Browns draft news. Keep your eyes peeled for my prospect dive videos. And as I said, if you've got any questions, drop them in this comment or head over to my social medias and drop them there. But most importantly, as always, go Browns.